I went and confronted Bellotti at the Goldstone. I parked the hearse outside the Goldstone and went in. We were asset stripped. Football was different then. We had 3 live games every year. The FA Cup final, the European Cup final, and England-Scotland. They used to have second half commentary on the radio, but they didn't tell you till 3 o'clock what the radio game was. It was a very staple diet. We had shoot, we had goal, we had, brief highlights sometimes on regional TV. Times have changed. Mark Lawrenson, world class. Nobby Stiles phoned Alan Mullery up. He said, I know you fancied this Lawrenson lad. Paisley's after him as well. Mike Bamber went and tracked Lawrenson down on his family holiday in Arenal in Mallorca and made him basically sign a blank piece of paper. It has been a roller coaster ride. I wouldn't change anything.
Thank you for joining us, Ian. How are you?
Thank you for inviting me first. Really good. Interesting times at the football club.
Oh, we're going right into modern day, are we? I was going to start at the start, but if you want to start now, we can start now.
I'm just trying to think the last time I saw him. I was watching TV at home. Can't remember what channel it was.
Was it Pointless?
Flicks it on, and him and his son are standing behind a desk trying to answer some questions. I thought,
what do you mean trying? I've got a Pointless trophy at home.
Oh, did you win it?
Yeah, we did.
You won it. Your son didn't really help you out.
Yeah, but that's all right, I'm his Eric to his Ernie. Don't worry about it.
Tweedledum and Tweedledee.
You used to be my mate.
I know. Yeah. Well, you didn't put me enough in your book. That's why. I'm after you now.
Yeah, the book we've got here, me and Vogue's been given a copy. From Every Angle and the War Which Nearly Destroyed Our Football Club. And that's spaced between 1973 and 2011.
Yeah, well, I mean, the actual war was 95 to 97, 98. We had the old Gillingham years, didn't we? But that 95 to 97, that sort of encapsulates everything. It basically took over all of our lives, but we had to do it. I'm not saying we wouldn't have a football club now, but you never know.
Take me back to those years, because obviously you've got a real affinity with the club from being a fan, fanzine editor, columnist and broadcaster. Just take me back to those times.
They were really surreal, Glenn, really surreal. We had the fanzine sponsoring games. I remember when Bellotti took over and he was phoning me up and he was sending me press releases. This is détente, this is coming together. We want the fanzine to be a big part. Thinking that when they dropped the bomb in 1995, we would go, oh no, they're all right. Clearly they weren't. It only came by chance, as all these things do. Someone went to, as it says in the book, and it's been sort of documented over the years, someone went to a golf day at Portsmouth. And someone on the Portsmouth staff had a few too many on the 19th hole and basically said, you're never going to believe this. You've sold the Goldstone and you're moving to Fratton Park. And I've said it in the book. If that golf day hadn't happened, how long would they have kept it under wraps? Because we had Liam Brady as the manager. We all thought we were moving in the right direction. Barry Lloyd, who I've got a lot of time for and who sort of not discovered you, but phoned up Dean Wilkinson, said, you need to sign this bloke.
He was the
on the back of a warm-up.
Yeah.
That was Barry's big thing with me. I told them to sign Glenn even before the ref blew his whistle, so which is good.
So you knew a player.
Yeah.
So he's to blame.
Yeah. So, of course, we got rid of Barry. Under Liam Brady, crowds had gone up 70%. We all thought we were moving in the right direction. They were talking about grounds, but they'd been talking about grounds for years and years. And then suddenly, July 1995, I'm sat in my funeral office in Worthing, and I get a phone call from Gordon Luckin. Gordon Luckin on line 2 for you. And Gordon tells us, and then it just goes from there, and it just spirals from there. And
so go on. Sorry, just run. Obviously, Vogues has got more of an understanding because he's a local lad, but I haven't. So you say that was in July?
Yeah. So they sold the ground.
In July?
Yeah. Well, it had been sold.
But that's when you found out?
Yeah, yeah.
And the season starts in August?
Yeah, season starts in August. Liam Brady knew nothing about it. No one knew anything about it. It was just carnage. And I can remember I had a funeral on the Friday and over here, and I went and confronted Bellotti at the Goldstone. I parked the hearse outside the Goldstone and went in. he had that look in his eye that he knew that I knew, because he tried to say, "Oh no, it's all wrong. It's all been misconstrued." We were asset stripped, and there's lots of people have to take some of the blame. As I say in the book, the council could have done what they did with Charlton Athletic, what Greenwich Council did with Charlton Athletic and the Valley, where they ring-fenced it and said, you can't build on that until Charlton have got a new stadium, permanent stadium. And I think they played at Palace and West Ham for about 9 years, didn't they? But all that time, the Valley was there. And if the council had done that in 1995, I'm not saying we'd be playing at the Goldstone now, but life would have been a hell of a lot easier.
Let's take you back to the very start of finding the love for Brighton early on. How did your affiliation with the club when you were a young boy happen?
It had been obviously there with football was different then, and I think I've got a grandson now who I'm going to get into football, even though his dad supports Tottenham, but we'll move on from that. But football was different then. We had 3 live games every year: the FA Cup final, the European Cup final, and England-Scotland. Everybody else kicked off at 3:00. They used to have second half commentary on the radio, but they didn't tell you till 3:00 what the radio game was, so it didn't interfere with crowds. So it was a completely different ball game.
It didn't interfere with crowds.
Yeah, didn't people say, I'll sit and listen to it at home? So it was that full on. So back then it was a very staple diet. We had shoot, we had goal, we had brief highlights sometimes on regional TV. Although we had this really big, strong Portsmouth, Southampton bias on Southern TV and BBC South going back then. So I've been on at my dad, and he finally relented on the 23rd of April 1973. Portsmouth at home. Brighton were already virtually relegated because they'd had a really bad run, similar to the run we had in 02-03.
Cheers for reminding me.
Well, no, we'll come on to that, because that gets, Anyway, so... And I went and I was hooked. Absolutely superb. And that was 8 years old, and that's when the roller coaster ride starts. Times have changed.
Yeah, they have indeed.
Yeah.
Talk to me about your rules in and around the football club.
Obviously, I'd been a fan, and we'd enjoyed all the highs and the lows. Don't want to share singing If I Could Turn Back Time in the background now. But that Alan Mullery era from 76 to 81... I was a teenager. Everything was just superb. Alan Mullery had 5 seasons, and we were either going up or challenging or fighting relegation. There was never any mid-table mediocrity. Mark Lawrenson, if he hadn't got injured in 87, would have gone with Ireland to the European Championships in 88, and he'd have played in Italia 90 with the Republic of Ireland. And I truly believe he'd have been lauded as world class. People have come close. Vincente, you two. People have come close. But as things stand, on this day, he is still the finest player to ever pull on.
Yeah, but you've got to remember where Brighton were as a football club and where Liverpool were then. Of Alan Hansen, kind of era of team for then.
But we beat Liverpool to his signature in 77. Nobby Stiles phoned Alan Mullery up. He said, I know you fancied this Lawrenson lad. Paisley's after him as well, in the summer of 77. Mike Bamber went and tracked Lawrenson down on his family holiday in Arundel, in Mallorca.
I thought you said Arundel.
Arundel, many people say Arundel. Arundel in Mallorca, and cornered him in the toilet of a bar and made him basically sign a blank piece of paper.
But you hear...
and we signed him for £100,000.
You hear Liverpool legends talk about Lawrenson being one of the greatest players at Liverpool.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, I'm not questioning that. He's just not a name that I hear mentioned, and I'm not talking about my generation or the new generation. I'm just talking about fans throughout.
Because he left us in 1981. Charles and Di weren't even married when he left us.
I still talk to old people as well.
You're talking to the wrong old people.
Yeah, I asked you about your rules. You haven't really filled me in on being a broadcaster. Then in fanzine ended up.
1988, the fanzine came. When we went up in 88, because we had a really good season under Barry Lloyd, we'd had a horrendous relegation the season before was all against the backdrop of financial trouble. This is not a slight on any of the directors, but even back then, all of the directors meant well, but they were always living above their means. There was one financial crisis to another financial crisis. We had Lifeline, we had Save Our Seagulls. There was always the handout. So we had a horrendous relegation in 86, 87. So 87, 88, we went back to blue and white stripes, which was a good start. And then we had a great promotion campaign, and we were celebrating our promotion campaign. And my mate Simon Wood came back from Stamford Bridge with a Chelsea Independent, which was one of the first fanzines. And he said, "Look at this." And me and my mate Pete Kenner, we sat there and said, "Well, if Chelsea can do it, we can do it." And so it went from there. And then from the fanzine, then I was doing a newspaper column, working on the radio, and then I've been a season ticket holder right the way through. So that's where it is. I'm not unique, but I'm in a unique position where I've come at the album from so many different angles. Hence the name of the book.
Yeah, I mean, it is incredible what you've seen at the football club. I mean, obviously, Virgs has seen it a little bit more than me, but I talk about it with a lot of people. It is unique, isn't it?
Every team's going to be unique. You know, all of the 92 clubs, they've all got fans that love their club, but there's something about us. And when it was all kicking off, I think it was 1996, we used to have a Goals Eye reader who lived in Texas. That's the Lone Star State in America, not the DIY place on the top road. And he used to ring me up at 1 o'clock on a Sunday morning to get an update. That's 1 a.m. Sunday morning our time. And my missus really used to get the hump. And after one phone call, she was saying, why are you putting all this time? You know, why have we got these people ringing up? Why? And I said, because there's a little boy in the next room in a cot, and I don't want him getting to 18 with no football club, and him saying to me, "Dad, why didn't you do more?" And my son's now 30 and works for the club doing Heart of the Matter. So you just have to keep fighting. I wrongly believed that the Goldstone would never go. That was probably more sentimental and a little bit mental, but more sentimental. But I always believed we would win. I always believed. From the first time that I met Dick Knight, I knew he was the right man. I knew of Tony. I knew his uncle Ray. So I knew Tony was the right man. But from the first time that I met Dick Knight, and we'd had more saviours than the Old Testament. I'm telling you, we'd had all these. We had a bloke called Simon Chamberlain turned up. Do you remember him? Or was that a bit before your time? He was a city trader, and he was going to do this, and he was going to do that, and he was going to do that. And it was very plausible, because John Vinicum at the Argus told all the boys at the Argus Sports Desk, "I've just met the next chairman of Brighton Hove Albion." There was no substance to him. So when I met Dick, we'd had plenty of saviours, plenty of people coming in saying they were going to do this, they were going to do that. But as soon as I met Dick, I knew he was the man for the job.
So even in the darkest of moments, you always believed they'd come through, even Hereford and everything.
Shankly said, didn't he? It's more than, it's not a matter of life and death. It's worse than that. It's. And being in the funeral background, I obviously see people at their worst. I knew that things would turn out because there were too many good people involved, too many good people fighting. There were some bad people, wolves in sheep's clothing, but there were too many good people.
And tell me how important it is, because obviously I've got a son that grew up in the city, and all he's known pretty much is the new Amex Stadium, Premier League football. Virgs is the same. He's got a couple of boys as well. Yeah. How important is it that this generation now appreciate what you guys went through?
Yeah, we fought for our club, but we have to move on now. Yeah, I mean, they can appreciate what we did, but I don't want people buying me,
You won't sell any copies if they don't appreciate what you did.
We're on a second reprint. No, but I don't want people, put my arm around me, buying me a pint and buying me a Piglet's Pantry sausage roll at the next game. We all did what we had to do.
I'm sure he does, by the way.
We all did what we had to do because we wanted to save our football club.
Well, just tell me, now, how satisfying it is to see the club where it is today.
It's great. There's pinch me moments, you know. And when Enciso scored the goal of the season, which was on my 50th anniversary of watching the club, I don't boo. I have an opinion, like everyone else, but I don't think booing really does. There's
not constructive.
No.
Yeah, just to add in that, it's just really interesting because, as Muzz has said, my brother was at the club in 95, 96, so I kind of was there at the Doncaster game, the Hartlepool game when the fans turned up. And I was kind of at that early period of the club where, you know, we were fighting for Falmouth. I remember away at Wycombe, we had to hold banners up and try and, you know, do everything that we could to try and get the ground. But it's just really interesting listening to Ian now that I've known you a long time now, ever since I first played for the club in 2000. And it's just so interesting to hear like the backstory of these people, Muzzer, that just kind of went through so much to support the club. And you're right, there is a time where the club does have to move on in terms of we can't just keep... But I think there's always an element of just to remember.
Yeah.
Talk to me more about kind of where you see the club now. Obviously, you've been on this 50-year journey with the football club.
I mean, Europe was absolutely... The old velvet bag at UEFA, it couldn't have come up better, could it? We had 3 group games and then we went to Rome. We went to 4 iconic cities. They were eventful, all 4 trips, weren't they? We got tear gassed in Athens, didn't we? We had a hell of a time in Amsterdam because you can enjoy yourself both at the football.
You can remember it, can you?
No, I can remember Amsterdam. It was bizarre. Again, one of those moments of even though he was a Tottenham fan, my ex-business partner, because I used to own a pub in Worthing as well, the Amsterdam game was the anniversary of his death. And his son lives in Amsterdam, and we came out of the Ajax Arena and went down, and we were going in the Jolly Sailor, and it was full up, and we walked in this other random pub, and Mick's son Harry was sat in the pub, and we had a drink for old Mick, and you know, and it's like little things like that. Marseille was interesting. I was on Tony Bloom's flight. Brighton were already 2-0 down when we got to the ground.
You were late?
Yeah.
I remember this. Yeah.
We were late. There was that terrible...
Yeah.
The old pilot said, ladies and gentlemen, I'm waiting to hear from the ground crew in the next 15 minutes. I understand there's a game in Marseille that you want to go to. If we receive the wrong news in the next 15 minutes, I have to tell you, you won't be going to the game. And we've got Tony and Ray Bloom sat up the front of the plane. The biggest night of the club's history. So technically, we didn't lose in Marseille as far as I was concerned because we won 2-0. But no, Marseille was brilliant. Athens was good, apart from the tear gas. And then Rome, well, that was just off the scale. But that was the beginning of the end for one of the most enigmatic and exciting managers we've had.
The most?
One of them. After 53 years, I'm like Henry VIII. You know, I've got all these wives, football wives, or football managers. So I've got many that, you know, and if I could have put them all on the front, I would have done. So they've all got qualities. The only...
Give me your top 3.
I would say that my top 3 Albion managers are Mickey Adams, Mark McGee and Roberto De Zerbi. For various reasons. Mickey Adams pulled us by our bootstraps. We were, as you'll read in the book, we were right rock bottom when Mickey Adams came in. Mark McGee is just not just a football manager. He's a beautiful human being. It's in the book, so I can say it. Christmas of 2004, a junior Seagull was knocked off his bike and killed 3 days before Christmas. Mark reached out to me because I was looking after this youngster, and Mark McGee went and sat with this kid's parents on Christmas Eve for 3 hours. And his opening gambit, when they opened the door, he says, "I'm here as a parent, not as the manager of Brighton Hove Albion." And on Boxing Day, we played Gillingham, and we had a minute's silence for the young lad. And I said to Mark came up to the commentary point afterwards. I said, "You've done me." And he goes, "Why? I said, if anybody comes on the phone in and slags you off, I'm going to cut them off now. I'm going to cut them off because what you've done supersedes anything I've ever experienced at this football club. Mickey was the same with Chestnut Tree, and I know Chris Catlin, and you've all done your bit for local charities and fans. But Mark doing that, and I do feel, and it's the only time I've ever fallen out with Dick. I thought Mark was very hard done by when he was let go, but I think it was a purely financial decision, and Falmer we were hemorrhaging money with Falmer, and I think Dean, whilst he wasn't going to pull up any trees, technically he's one of the best coaches we've ever had, Dean Wilkins, and I say it in the book, it was a cheap option, and we could just tread water while we were fighting for Falmer.
Yeah, I think.
Mark keeping us up in 04-05 on the lowest budget in the Championship by a country mile is probably one of the greatest achievements by a Brighton manager.
I think they had to stick a defender up
front.
And
it does, yeah. And he did well. Paul Warhurst, he was Paul Warhurst Mark too.
Jerry Taggart.
Yeah. That was one of the greatest achievements as a Brighton manager. And I've said it, and Mark has said it as well. Mark should have walked away in 05 when his stock was high. I think he'd still be in football management now. I think the problem being is that once you're tarnished with that horrible relegation of the next year, and it goes down and down. Mark, if he hadn't fallen out with Fergie, Mark would have been a contender for the Man United job. He had a really good working relationship with Fergie when he was at Wolves.
Obviously played
when he was at Leicester.
Yeah.
There's a culture now in football with the new generation, with society, the way it is of everything being immediate, whether that be Deliveroo, whether that be watching a movie or listening to music at the click of a finger. Yeah. I also think that spills over into the sporting arena where fans expect instant success, but as me and Virgs know very well,
it doesn't come overnight.
It's very difficult to build that culture and that consistency and those relationships to be successful.
And people do want, like you say, Deliveroo is a very good analogy. Pat Saywood lost 12 games on the bounce in 72-73, kept his job until the October of 73, and then Cloughie became available, and we had that great PR stunt.
Well, you look back to Alex Ferguson. He's the best example.
Yeah,
he had a really rough, turbulent time.
Mark Robbins scored, didn't he, at Nottingham Forest in the FA Cup? Look at Howard Kendall. Everton played Coventry in December 1983, 0-0 draw. 18,000 at Goodison, and there was a big banner, Howard, go now.
But you say that about Mark McGee. We played away at West Ham. You're saying tactically he switched on.
Yeah, Butters scored.
We set up the whole week 3-5-2. This is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to do, because West Ham had a really good team. Turned to sheet of paper over at Upton Park. 4-4-2. I've gone from playing right side centre half to up front alongside Steve Carriage, and we won 1-0. That's Mark at his very, very best. But I go back to what Ian said. When my dad died, Mark did a lot for me in terms of support and the way that he can make you go into a room and you could walk out of it feeling that you could play for Real Madrid.
That's the mark of the man.
Yeah. He does.
But not just about football, like you said.
Yeah, he's done a lot.
Your dad used to come and sit in my office and have a coffee when he used to come over to Worthing. Lovely man. And but Mark is Mark is a special kind of human being. As most people connected with our football club are, we very rarely get a wrong. And
we've had a few in the past.
We've had a few, but we very rarely get. And now we have to celebrate. Yeah, I would like to get back in Europe.
We will one day.
We will. 88-89, we lost our first 8 games of the season. We lost 6 in the league, and we lost twice to Southend in the League Cup when it was 2 legs. And we met Kevin Bremner in our local, the George Goring. Kevin Bremner was trying to sort of say, things will get better. He said, but someone's got to be bottom of the league. And we said, well, that's all right, Kevin, just as long as it's not us. and that's how it should be. And again, a case in point, Barry Lloyd lost 8 games, 8 straight games, kept his job.
To wrap it up, I want you to sum up the pinnacle of being a Brighton Hove Albion fan for all the years you have been.
Michael Robinson's winner in the 1983 FA Cup semi-final at Highbury against Sheffield Wednesday. Again, Michael Robinson, a beautiful human being on and off the field, and someone who is much missed. Robbie Rineout's goal at Hereford, the final whistle at Hereford on the instruction of the police commander at Edgar Street. If you look at the YouTube videos, he played no injury time.
Yeah.
No injury time.
Were you involved?
I'm not that old.
All right.
The match commander is stood there with the riot police, because Graham Turner, the Hereford boss, because there's a whole YouTube video, and Graham Turner says, well, we must have about 5 minutes injury time. And the referee looks at the match commander nods his head, and the referee blows his whistle. And if you check, there was no injury time that day. And obviously Wigan at home on Easter Monday, because that was all the heartache, wasn't it? That was it.
Now you're talking.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and Plymouth Argyle on Easter Saturday 2001, when all the results went for us.
Down there, yeah.
Hartlepool's result went, Leyton Orient's result, and I had to do the commentary for the last 20 minutes. I was crying my eyes out. It was marvellous, and I give it to Archer, Stanley, and Bellotti on the radio, and I got a producer having a go at me in the cans, but I didn't care, because we were back, and that was great. And Horsey let me interview Mickey Adams that day, because it meant so much. There's been so many times, but that Premier League going up, because it was the culmination of everything. There's been some great times. There's more great times to come. Looking forward to taking my I do take my kids, my son, and taking my grandchildren. And I've got another one coming in March. It has been a roller coaster ride. It's a cliche. I wouldn't change anything, but it's that David Brent line at the end of The Office. You can't have a rainbow without the rain, Dolly Parton, innit? And you can't have the good times without the bad times. And you appreciate the good times more because of the bad times. I mean, and there was some really horrendous times. Did you play in the Darlington game?
I've got to remember, I'm not that old.
Oh, right,
right?
sorry.
I joined the
We
club.
have got a camera on you right now.
I joined the club in 2000.
Oh, I do apologise.
So that Plymouth game.
No, but I think you
thought I was playing at Hereford.
Yeah, but I thought your
my brother was there in
your brother
96.
was involved.
I joined in
but
2000.
There was Glenn. Just to picture the scene. There was less than 3,000 in the ground. Bellotti lasted 72 seconds in the ground before he was chased out of the ground and had to go home in a Securicorp van. And we lost 3-2 to Darlington and went 8 points adrift at the bottom of the Football League. And someone put the front windows through that night of reception.
Well,
and it was so sad, because I thought of all the iconic people that had walked through those doors. And it had to be done. Not probably the breaking glass, but that was the point where it had to be done. And of course, Jimmy was an Albion legend, but to quote Die Hard 2, John McClane, you're in the wrong place at the wrong time. He was in the wrong place at the wrong time, and his managerial career never recovered after that. You know, it's been so many good times. But even the bad times, you have to have them to appreciate the good times.
I think it shapes the club in
it
everything.
Does.
It kind of that everything about it kind of just says everything, really. Just a quote one from me. Who's your favourite ever Albion player?
My favourite player is going to have to be the Ginger Prince, because I did his Kerry Mayo, because I was his testimonial chairman, and it meant so much to him. And he could have really been the Panto villain with that own goal at Hereford, and for him to come back from that. And again, like you two, he's a genuinely nice person. And you know, there are some footballers you two played with, a few that aren't, and we are very lucky. But again, and I don't want to blow smoke there, but you, class, when you didn't celebrate when you scored for Crystal Palace in September 2000.
We don't have to mention those times on this podcast.
But that for me, what you did with my mate when he was terminally ill, and my mate's boy on his 21st, that cements your legend, because you didn't want to go. It's that conundrum. I thought Gus Poyet was a great manager, bar one thing. where he thought Craig McHale-Smith was better than you. And who knows, sliding doors, if you had stayed, would we have gone up earlier? Who knows?
Listen, I can back a better
But you had so
footballer.
much, but you came back and you are, well, you both are Albion legends with all the fans. But when you didn't celebrate that goal that night,
Which one?
that's class. You know, the third one. The third one.
Only because he was going in Brighton that evening, he couldn't go out.
That was a crazy afternoon. I mean, what the fixture computer was doing, putting it on a midweek game.
That was the first time I really I came across the rivalry, because I hadn't seen it in my first 3.5 years. That was the moment I was like, oh, actually, it is. It's a big thing.
Yeah.
But anyways, from that sliding doors moment of Darlington, two clubs going in different directions, and the moment you said about Michael Robinson's goal, Robbie's goal at Hereford, Wigan at home, and Plymouth on Easter Saturday, it's been a pleasure to sit down and relive some of those moments with you.
Thank you for having me on, gents.
Pleasure.